estado ng ating bansa. Ilahad ang mga pinakabagong balita at pangyayari sa ating bayan. Ipaalam sa taong bayan ang katotohanan at ipaliwanag ang mga hakbang na ginagawa ng pamahalaan upang manatiling payapa at maiangat ang pamumuhay ng bawat Pilipino. Mula sa Pangulo ng Republika ng Pilipinas, Mayor Rodrigo Roa Duterte, ito ang Talk to the People.
Good evening to all my kababayans. I hope you all continue to be safe and in good health together with your loved ones. I would like to begin our weekly talk to the people by sharing with you my recent activities. Early today, November 29, I called on the entire nation for solidarity as we started our National Vaccination Day or Bayanihan Bakunahan, which will run until December 1, 2021. I'd like to, yung bakunahan sa bayan, isang lugar lang ang sabi nila magpunta ako. So, galing ako kanina sa, kaya na-late, galing ako sa Antipolo. Paki-play nga yung bakunahan ng bayan. Prize nila.
Mayor, ako naman ang taya. Ito.
Ito rin.
Thank you po. Thank you.
Salamat. Bakuna. Gulaman. Kita mo yan, first time na bakuna. Karamihan kasi may trabaho eh. We would like to ask, request Dr. Edsel Salvania. The topic would be Omicron variant, the clinical features. Sir,
Good evening, Mr. President. Good evening to the Cabinet and the rest of the IATF and our resource persons. Can I have my slides up, please?
sir.
Okay, so mayong gabi, Mr. President. We are here to talk about, as you said, it's another variant po. So this variant is called Omicron, and I would like to just quickly review yung ating clinical features ng variant na po ito. Next slide, please. So this is the newest, most mutated variant po, Mr. President. So it is possibly more transmissible than Delta, although hindi pa ito sigurado, but this is what WHO is watching out for po. And for now, there are no early indications that it is deadlier. So hindi po siya mas nakamamatay. There are no early indications that patients are getting sicker. In fact, the early findings are mukhang baka mas mild. Kung swertihin po tayo, Mr. President, baka mas mild dito, although we are still watching for additional data. The problem is this may be less susceptible to our vaccines in preventing infection, but it's not going to be zero po. Mababawasan lang if ever. And we still expect that the vaccines will continue to protect against severe disease. Sabi rin naman po ng manufacturers, kung mukhang mababa talaga yung efficacy, they can also tweak the vaccines po. Next slide, please. So ito po yung WHO initial announcement. This was November 26, but that they had detected this Omicron, which is B.1.529. Next slide, please. So as we had mentioned, it is the most mutated. It has almost twice the number of mutations as Delta, and 30 of these mutations are on the spike protein. Yung spike protein po is what the virus uses to attach to the cells of our body. And ito rin po yung main target ng ating vaccines. And so that is why there is a lot of concern na because nag-mutate yung spike protein, baka mag-decrease lang ng konti yung vaccine efficacy all the way to significant changes in that. And that's what everyone is watching very carefully po. So for now, all our antigen tests and most of our PCR tests will work naman. So we don't anticipate any problem with our testing. And as has been mentioned, Pfizer has also said that they can adjust the vaccines if needed, hindi pa naman sigurado, in as little as 100 days. So hindi naman po tayo completely helpless in this sense. Next slide, please. So ito po yung R-naught. This is a big question right now. Nobody knows ano yung R-naught ng Omicron. For comparison po, the original Wuhan virus, ang R-naught niya is 2.4 to 2.6, meaning one person can infect almost 3 people. Yung sa Europe, yung B1 is 3, yung Alpha, which was the one from the UK, is 4 to 5, and yung Delta, yung pinakamataas na 5 to 8. So nobody knows po right now. It is an ongoing question, and there are indications that it may be a little more transmissible. There are also indications that it might not be as transmissible. So we are waiting for more word on this. Next slide, please. So ito lang po yung nakakabahala. If we look at the trajectory of the number of sequences na nakikita po nila sa Africa, the trajectory is faster than the other variants like Beta and Delta. Pero this is preliminary data kasi syempre nagko-contact trace yung mga tao eh. So naturally, pag nagko-contact trace, marami ka talagang mapipick up. This is what we say na if you're looking for something, you will find it. But this is part of the reason why WHO is very concerned about this, because if this is confirmed, then mabilis po talaga yung transmission and yung survival advantage nitong Omicron. Next slide, please. So, yung ginagawa po natin ngayon, they will all work pa rin. That's the good news. Yung ating face mask, yung ating face shield, yung physical distance, The treatment we anticipate will still work, yung mga dexamethasone, tocilizumab. Ang baka maapektuhan lang po yung bagong treatment na tinatawag na monoclonal antibodies, because if there is a change in the virus, baka hindi na siya ma-recognize ng monoclonal antibodies. So, yung ventilation po, parang nangyari po dun sa Delta, pag nakakulog po talaga, mas madaling matransmit yung virus. So we need to make sure that places are well ventilated, mababa yung carbon dioxide levels para hindi mag-transmit yung mga tao. Then of course, yung ginagawa po natin today, vaccinate, vaccinate, vaccinate. This is something that will protect the Filipino people in the long run. And what we are doing now is we are enhancing our border control. As has been mentioned already, it's completely impossible to keep this out. Eventually, it will get in. But if we delay its entry, then we have more time to prepare, just like what we did with Delta, Mr. President. So right now, the recommendation was yesterday was to escalate all the green country protocols into yellow country protocols para mas enhanced po talaga yung monitoring natin ng mga people who are coming in. Next slide. So in summary po, marami pa pong questions tayo about Omicron, but it is always better to be safe than sorry. While we are waiting for these answers, it is best to ingatan po natin. As we know, nahirapan po tayo sa Delta, although our preparations naman was able to decrease the impact of Delta. And the fact that WHO designated this as a variant of concern very early, that is for the scientists very concerning. Kasi maaga pa lang sinabi na nila na variant of concern, that means they're really worried about it po, and it's better to take this seriously. And then if it turns out na hindi naman ganun ka-serious, then at least we protected everyone. Kasi it's better to err on the side of caution. As we said, the vaccines will still work. It's possible the potency will decrease, but there are solutions to this po. The testing and the treatment will remain the same. And while we are waiting for more data, it is prudent to protect our borders and further accelerate vaccination po. That's all, Mr. President.
Salamat po. You practically answered all our questions about talagang mutant lang. So it would worry us if it is more easily to transmit, and itong potency ng bakuna will it work against this Omicron? Sana naman. Anybody in the panel would like to talk about the Omicron? Ako gusto kong patayin yan, kaya lang hindi ko malaman kung saan ko hanapin. Gusto kong barilin ng buang na yan.
Mr. President, if
Yes.
I just may I be allowed to introduce the other members of the panel? We have Dr. Ana Ong Lim, a member of the DOH-IETF Technical Advisory Group of Experts. She's affiliated with the UP College of Medicine and the Philippine General Hospital. And then we also have Dr. Cynthia Saloma, who is the Executive Director of the Philippine Genome Center. And we also have Dr. Eva Cuchonco de la Paz, also of the UP National Institutes of Health. And we have two on board via Zoom, Dr. Nina Gloriani. She's the head of the vaccine expert panel. And also Dr. Marisa Alejandria, equally a renowned and respected member of the Technical Advisory Group of Experts. So, sir, they're ready to further discuss if there are additional information with regard to this. Thank you, Mr. President.
Secretary Doki, if you were to just ask a few words about Omicron, or what our distinguished guests know about the virus, you can call them in the order you want, kung gusto mong marinig sila.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Ikaw na, you take over the floor and
The discussions. Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Mr. President. And again, good afternoon to my fellow cabinet members. It is really quite an opportunity to assemble once again our untiring and selfless experts during this meeting. Indeed, very important. We have Dr. Ano Ong Lim, who might want to add or chime in the discussions if she has some additional information. Certainly will be most appreciated. And so it is true for the rest of those that we have invited.
Hello. Good evening, Mr. President, and thank you, Secretary Duque, for the opportunity to share some inputs. Currently, what Dr. Salvani has mentioned is really the gap in the knowledge that we have about this new variant. But what really raises a lot of concern is the fact that WHO itself has designated it almost immediately as a VOC. And from what we've observed of the behavior of WHO in the past, they've been quite cautious. And so for them to designate it as a VOC right off the bat, it raised a lot of concern. So yung isa po sigurong pwede nating maging action coming from this will be to learn from the experience of Delta, where nung nakilala po yung Delta in India in May, inabot po ng halos 2 buwan bago siya nakapasok sa Pilipinas dahil po dun sa paghihigpit natin sa border controls. So siguro isa pong pwedeng pag-aralan ulit ito para makabili po tayo ulit ng oras to be able to strengthen our health infrastructure, to be ready for the worst eventuality. Habang po pinapatakbo natin yung kampanya natin sa vaccination, which we think will be the ultimate protection para sa ating mga kababayan. Yun lang po.
Maybe some perspectives from the National Institutes of Health, Dr. Eva Kuchonko, followed by Dr. Cynthia Saloma of Philippine Genome Center in terms of what are the plans in terms of whole genome sequencing of this evolving variant, the Omicron. Ma'am, Dr. Eva, you have the floor. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you po. Magandang gabi po, Mr. President, and thank you, Secretary Duque. Sa amin po, nagpapatupad po tayo, simula po, mag-iisang taon na po yung ating genomic biosurveillance. At nagpapasalamat po kami sa naging suporta po sa ating genome sequencing sapagkat yun lang po ang pamamagitan upang makita po natin kung ito po mga variants na ito ay nakapasok na sa ating bansa. So, patuloy po natatanong po kami kung ito po ba ay na-detect na sa atin, yung Omicron. So far po sa mga sequencing results natin sa Philippine Genome Center, hindi pa po siya nadidetect. Subalit, ang aming pong mga plano ngayon ay imungkahi po, hikayatin po muli ang mga laboratorio upang mag-submit po ng mga samples, lalo na po galing sa ating mga returning overseas Filipino, Mr. President. So, very important pa rin po. Ang mensahe ko lang po talaga ay napaka-importante pong meron po tayong genomic biosurveillance in place in our country. Hindi po lahat ng bansa ay may ganitong kapasidad at ito po ay makakatulong sa atin sa pag-detect po nito mga variants. Yun lang po, Mr. President.
Mr. President, with your permission, we recognize Dr. Cynthia Saloma, the Executive Director of the Philippine Genome Center. Thank you, Mr. President.
So, Mr. President, good evening po. Representing the Philippine Genome Center. So, kung maalala ninyo, Mr. President, last December 26, pumunta kami dito. At doon po natin sinimulan yung ating genomic biosurveillance at mabuti naman po kasi the equipment as well as the people were in place and that was also the result. That was also the reason why we were able to detect the alpha variant. Ngayon naman po, kailangan naman nating i-detect itong Omicron if ever it has entered the country. So far po, Mr. President, we have already done about 18,000 whole genome sequences. And binalikan po natin yung ating database, wala pa po tayo nakita ni isang Omicron. So going forward, well, Mr. President, I think we need to backtrack samples from early November, and then going forward, all other samples coming in to the Philippines, yung mga positives nating mga samples sa airport, as well as at different places in the Philippines, kung mapaipadala sa amin at we can do more intense sequencing. At dahil naman po sa tulong ng DBM at DOH, we were able to expand our genomic biosurveillance capability, and probably, Mr. President, by next month, we will be ready to do sequencing in Visayas and Mindanao po.
Meron po tayong from the virtual participation, si Dr. Nina Gloriani, who heads the vaccine expert panel, and to be followed by Dr. Isa Alejandria, also of the Technical Advisory Group of Experts. Ma'am, you have the floor, Dr. Nina Gloriani. Thank you, Mr. President.
Magandang gabi po, Mr. President, and thank you, Secretary Duque. Magandang gabi po sa lahat. Habang po ginagawa natin yung mga border controls, ito pong biosurveillance, siguro po magandang, not that mananakot tayo, but we could use this as an opportunity to ramp up our immunization coverage. So kasi ang mga datos po naman showed na pag nakakompleto ng dalawa, at nakapag-booster lalo yung mga vulnerable po, ay maganda naman ang response ng mga bakuna na yan doon sa variants. So, ramping up the immunization coverage will help us in this threat again. So, yun lamang po. Maraming po salamat.
Salamat, ma'am. The other...
Dr. Yes, Mr. President, thank you. Dr. Nina Gloriani, the last to manifest. You have the floor, ma'am.
Good evening po, Mr. President. Thank you, Secretary Duque. And good evening po sa lahat. Apologies lang po, I'm on the road. I concur with my colleagues, no? Dr. Edsel, Dr. Anna, and our genomic colleagues, no, in the Philippine Genome Center, Dr. Nina. Yeah, while we still don't know much about this variant, it gives us lead time really to prepare, no? And learn from our lessons from the Delta variant. Okay, so I agree that we need to be hyper vigilant this time, no? Since has been already declared as a variant of concern. And again, I think that's also preemptive, no? Knowing that there's a surge now going on in Europe. So for us, that's enough lead time to really increase our capacity, again, review our capacity, strengthen our health system. Hope in the event that it will come into the country, and hopefully not. So we really need to be strict in enforcing our border controls, our protocols. So we need to review them again. And of course, strict enforcement of our minimum public health standards, plus the push, no, for the vaccination. Yun lang po, Mr. President.
Thank you, ma'am. The lady?
Yes, Mr. President. No, I've been listening to all the discussions, and as agreed, we were supposed to restart tourism December 1, but then we heeded the advice of the doctors, and we decided to temporarily suspend it first to see how this goes.
Okay. Sorry, akala ko doktora ka, hindi kita nakilala.
Thank you, Mr. President.
So we go back now to Secretary Duque. Do you have an additional
Yes, sir.
caveats for us to observe? Aside from the basics which are there, nakalantad na, whatever we can gather here, we will collate it sa yung task force. Then maybe we can have another advisory. As for example, would it be good for us to reinstate the mask ang una kong tanong sa inyong mga doktor actually is, yung diretsahan na lang, is there a possibility that the Omicron will visit the Philippines?
Yes, sir. It is a matter. It's not a matter of if. Okay, it's a matter of when.
Yeah.
So talagang yan po, papasok yan just as we have experienced with Alpha, Beta, Delta, among the more compelling variants of concern, Mr. President. So kinakailangan talaga paigtingin po natin ang atin pong PDITR strategy. I think there are three major interventions that we need to emphasize to our people. Number one is the enforcement of the compliance to the minimum public health standard. So, yung sinasabi niyo po, sir, mask, at now, ako, ang talagang face shield ay under the 3Cs context in the closed spaces, mag-face shield, in crowded areas, in close contact settings, just like in the transport sector, where people, as we have increased the carrying capacities of our public utility vehicles, I think now, with the threat of this Omicron variant, it will be an added layer of protection that will really be good for the public. And then secondly, Mr. President, the maintain the trajectory of our vaccination rate. We need to, as we have successfully launched the 3-day vaccination, massive vaccination rollout under your directive, Mr. President. We need to really widen and increase the vaccination coverage to reach population protection. Of course, the first milestone by the end of December 31st, we hope to be able to completely jab 54 million Filipinos. And then by February of 2022, we should be able to realistically achieve a 77 million Filipinos to be completely inoculated. So, yun po. And lastly, Mr. President, it is important that we continue to strengthen and prepare the health system's capacity for the worst case scenario. In case there's going to be a sustained high community transmission on account of this possible Omicron variant entering our country, it is best that while we have low cases now, in fact today we only have 665 cases, buong Pilipinas po yan, sir. And NCR only has about 165 cases. So this is really a welcome development, Mr. President. But let's take advantage of our low number of cases and prepare the health system's capacity, again, for the worst case scenario. So yun pong tatlo, sir. Maraming salamat po.
Alam mo, actually, it's a mutant. The response is almost the same. Hugas, mask, iwas din. Itong mask sa itong shield, as a layman, I would just say that an added cover would be an added protection. Mas kinagaano ka, even how minimal it would be, for as long as it would complete the, at least what we know now, how to prevent. I would suggest to the task force to make a statement to whether or not really to, pag magdating itong Omicron na to, since we have a dearth of data dito sa in the meantime, it prudence would just dictate that maybe we'll be strict again. That kayo ang task force. You have to sort it out whether we have to reimpose the shield. Kasi nakadagdag talaga. O, lahat nga, ikaw po, meron ka. Almost all the cabinet. Ako lang ang, hindi kasi ako plastic, ma'am. Hindi, actually, mahilig pa ako magtanggal ng ano. But do not mind me. I am ruled by destiny. Pag panahon ko na, panahon. Yes, sir.
Good evening po, Mr. President. Hindi naman po natin talaga totally na-discard yung face shield. In-integrate lang po natin doon sa alert level system na alert level 1 to 3 ay voluntary po. Alert level 4, may discretion ang LGU to impose. Alert level 5, talaga mandatory. So, with the policy na naging voluntary siya, at alert level 2 po, yung buong Pilipinas except isang probinsya lang na nasa alert level 3, yung Apayao po. Pero nakita po natin na buwaba din naman yung number. But of course, pag pumasok po yung Omicron at tumaas yung alert level, i-impose po ulit natin. Para pong sa layman's term, yung face shield po parang payong. Pag malakas ang ulan, nagpapayong po tayo. Pero pag wala ng ulan, pwedeng itabi lang muna yung payong. Pero pag uulan o kaya nakita natin na maulap, dadala po ng payong. So, andun pa rin po siya sa ating policy. But of course, sir, it will change kung may makapasok na Omicron. Now, we have instituted border controls, but our border in the south is porous. Yun ang dapat bantayan po. Kasi kung mayroong mga pumasok na mga Filipino Muslims from Sabah, from Malaysia or Indonesia, at hindi po dumaan sa port o seaport airport, ayun po yung talagang kailangan mapantayan. And through the PNP, Armed Forces, Coast Guard, maglalabas po kami ng mas maigpit na mga direktiba para sigurado mapantayan yung mga porous borders natin. Yun po.
With the permission of the President.
Yes, Secretary Tugari.
Thank you, sir. This is just a gentle observation. Doon sa mga usap-usapan at presentasyon na ginawa kanina, maliwanag kong sinabing it will just be a matter of time na papasok yung Omicron. It is an issue of when. At nabanggit din ho sa presentasyon kanina na para makontrol at maibsan yung tinatawag na pagpasok ng Omicron. Kailangan tignan ho natin yung mga pag-observe ng basic health protocol. Sinabi ho, gumamit ng mask, gumamit ng face shield, mag-maintain ng social standing. Of late, ang nangyari ho, nagkaroon ho tayo ng polisiya at protocol na kung saan sinabi natin maging optional yung face shield. Sinabi rin ho natin na luwagan yung physical distancing. Na kung saan yung kagawaran ng transportasyon, dahil sa guidance na to, in-increase ho namin from 50% ang capacity to 70%. At may plano ho kaming increase pa yan, baka maabot hanggang Pasko. Depende sa approval ng IATF, maabot ng 100%. Para nang sa ganoon makatulong yung kagawaran sa pag-angat ng tinatawag na ekonomiya dito sa bansa. Ang gentle observation ko ho, kagaya na napag-usapan, kung rerepasuhin natin paano hindi lang kontrolin yung Omicron pag pumasok na. Ang mahalaga, kontrolin natin na huwag pumasok o bawasan yung oportunidad na pumasok. If this is the mandated mission and the objective, my gentle observation is, meron hubang mga suggestion yung ating mga expert regarding the face shield. Pangalawa ho, I'll be more interested in transportation. Meron ho ba kayong suggestion na masasabi sa amin na dapat bang ituloy namin yung pag-angat to 70% at habulin yung 100% pag Disyembre? Gusto nyo bang i-minor at ikambyo namin ito? Yung tinatawag na border patrol na kung saan meron din hong gawain at palatuntunan ang kagawaran ng transportasyon. Gaano ho kalalim ang aming gagawin dito sa border patrol? Mahalaga hong malaman namin ito kasi makiki-coordinate kami sa mga local government. Mahalagang malaman namin ito pagkat nabanggit ho yung Philippine Coast Guard kanina na kung saan magkakaroon kami ng guidance. Yun lang po, it is a gentle observation. Perhaps if this is not the forum wherewith to discuss the details of those, kailangan puntuhan kaagad sa IATF. Ang ibig kong sabihin, itutuloy-tuloy ko ba yung pagpunta sa 70% at taasan at kaganapin to ng 100% bago magtapos ang Disyembre? Pangalawa, doon sa physical standing, kailangan ko bang gawing optional pa rin ang paggamit nitong face shield? Mahalaga hong malaman namin kagad ito kasi gagawa kami ng growing and revolving policy of protocol. Doon sa border patrol, yung iba ho yung regulasyon ng mga resyon, ng mga probinsya, ng mga borders sa international. Hanggang saan ho kami dapat sumilip? Hanggang saan ho dapat kami magbigay ng atensyon? Yun lang po, gentle observation. This is not the forum to discuss it. Perhaps it is imperative that we discuss this at the soonest possible time at the IATF. Why? Because of the statement that Omicron is sure to come. It is just a matter of when. Hindi ho ako nagsabi niyan, yung mga expert ang nagsabi niyan. Ang sabi ho ng mga expert, gamitin yung basic protocol ulit. Alin ho yun? Yung mask, yung washing of hands, yung face shield. Hanggang saan ho ako babagtas sa tinatawag na physical distancing? Lalo't higit. Itinaas na ho namin from 50 to 70%. Mag-stop na ho ba ako doon? O ibabalik ko sa 50 or a lower rank? May target ho kami na bago magtapos ang Disyembre, magkaroon kami kung maaari, kung papayagan ng IATF, yung 100%. Yun lang po, Mr. President. Salamat po.
Thank you. Secretary Duque.
Mr. President, we take note of the issues and questions of Secretary Art Tugade, and rest assured that we will include this among the agenda items for deliberation and decision by the IATF come Thursday, Mr. President. And then we'll give feedback to you, Mr. President.
Yes,
Mr. President.
Secretary Dizon.
Mr. President, very quickly, I think what our experts said is very important, and in the context of what we tell our people in the coming days, given the urgency of this new variant. And I think it's related to what we started today and initiated by Secretary Galvez and Secretary Duque, which is the how do we use this situation to really push our people to get vaccinated? Because I think among the interventions, it is really vaccination that will really help us mitigate the effects of this new variant. Mukhang fake news lang po yung mga sinasabi sa media na it is totally resistant. This variant is totally the vaccines do not have any effect on this. I think that is fake news, Dr. Edsel. So there is still significant effect of the vaccines that we have now on this variant. So I think, Mr. President, in the coming days, hindi ko alam kung dapat takutin natin ang mga kababayan natin na seryoso ito para po yung mga iba pang mga matitigas ang ulo sa mga kababayan natin na ayaw magpabakuna, talagang magpabakuna na. Because I think ultimately, ito po yung magiging panglaban talaga natin sa variant na ito, Mr. President. Thank you po.
Marami pa. There are still a lot of people resisting the bakuna. Nakita natin kanina, middle class. Hindi naman talaga yung C pati D. Lower C pati D. Ang mga taong nakaupo, Sabi ko, bakit ngayon lang kayo nagpapakuna? May, sa bagay, yung iba sa trabaho. Kaya pag wala kang bakuna at magpabakuna ka, now is the time to do it because it's a day dedicated to vaccine. So, itong private pati public offices, pagka magpabakuna yung trabahante ninyo, allow them to go out and have the vaccine. Yung walang lukuhan. Magbigay lang the place where he or she would get the vaccine and that's about it. There should be, kasi alam mo yung mga tao, Sabado, pamilya, at about the only time that they have really the extra space to bahay, linggo, lalo linggo, simba, wala nang, kaya yung, tsaka walang masyado magtrabaho. We make actually the vaccine stations open kung maaari Monday to Sunday. Even if it would mean a lesser crowd. Ang importante kasi dito, mabakuna because isang hawa ito, hawa lahat. Itong mga tao na ayaw talaga magpabakuna because of whatever, religious or I mean no offense. Pero yung ayaw magpabakuna, madali lang man yan. Mamili ka. Matagal kang mabuhay o gusto mo nang mamatay. Diyan sa dalawa na, pag kumapit yung COVID na yan, hindi pa natin alam itong Omicron, patay na. Mamili kayo. Early demise or live longer. Kasi pag nahawa ka talaga, there's nothing you can do. Kung sa ospital na lalo napasukan ng tubo yung mukha mo. Alam mo bakit? Marami akong kaibigan na namatay na. At no other time in my life have I lost so many friends and people I know. Talagang ngayon lang. Kaya inabutan ko itong panahon ko, crisis. Ngayon, itong mga tao na ayaw magpabakuna, if the task force will decide to make it mandatory, mamili kayo. Talagang, because it's not a question, itong human rights. Let me explain. Kagaya ng itong isang opisina tayo dito. If there's one or two, ayaw magpabakuna. And they are already in the, nakuha na nila at humihinog na yung virus. Ihawa mo lahat. So it's unfair. It's actually to protect public health. The ministerial functions of government are government can issue measures that will protect public health, public safety, public order. It's in the police state. Nakaano sa category police state. So, in some countries, mandatory na. Dito, maingay ang human rights. So, ang una nating targetin, puntahan natin sa opisina. Ako, kung may malaman ako na director o ano, magdala ako ng doktor, itusok, turok ko yung needle sa ulo mo, hindi sa kamay. Really, I'm not joking, but you know, as a worker of government, also charged in the overall operation of the government, I may agree with the task force if they decide to make it mandatory. It's for public health. No, kung ayaw mo, huwag kang lumabas. Kung wala mang problema na ayaw ka magpabakuna, huwag kang lumabas ng bahay. Kasi pag nahawa ka, diretso hawa uli. Now, there is no guarantee that you will not get contaminated again. That has been said several times, impressed upon us by the medical experts, na mahawa ka uli. So, ang ganun, lalo na baski na sa'yo yung bakunado yung pamilya mo, kung tarantado ka talaga, dalhin mo uli, still, you put in jeopardy the entire family or entire office. No, under the police power of the state, I can compel you. It's a human rights. Nandoon man talaga sa kabila. Alam mo itong human rights, nandoon yan talaga sila sa kabila. Baski na sa Pasig, doon yan sila. They're always on the other side of any argument or issue. Just to be heard. Just to be heard. Wala mang iba. Pero tayo dito lahat, we all believe in the bakuna. I know of undersecretary. Kalimutan ko, nandoon sa notes ko. Ay, baka puntahan na lang kita sa opisina, ma'am. At ako na ang maghawak sa iyo. Kung hindi, talian kita sa silya mo para matusukan ka. Dalawa, bala, 3 tusok. Isabay mo na yung booster para wala na problema. So, aside from the guest who gave us at least a substantial and meaningful picture of what's ahead of us. Sinasabi sa atin, ahead of us is that whether we like it or not, itong Omicron na to, dadating talaga. So, pasalamat kami kay Dr. Marisa Alindria at Nina Gloriani of the national officials of the cabinet members are here. Secretary Doki, Secretary Galvez, Secretary Lorenzana, and Secretary Anyo. These are the guys who are running the show dito sa COVID. Ito yung doing the legwork actually. Secretary Dison, Carlo Nograres, Secretary, I'd like to introduce to you, bago natin Secretary, DPWH, si Roger Mercado. He used to be a congressman. He was a congressman. But he opted to join he resigned as a congressman, opted to join the cabinet. Ikilala ko naman ito. Kasi taga Leyte ito, yung lugar where I was born. Ito. Ngayon, the question is, if this Omicron really deadlier than the rest, and whether or not we have to invoke the powers, the police powers of the state to compel obedience. Takutin mo talaga. There is no law. Ang bagong secretary ng DPWH, would you want to talk? You also have situations like this. Yung mga empleyado ayaw.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Good afternoon to everybody. In our department, Mr. President, I think it's too minimal. I think there's only 1% that does not want to be vaccinated. Most want to be vaccinated. And if I may comment, Mr. President,
Go ahead.
I think this is now the proper time that we should ask our people to be vaccinated, because we have already gone a long time and we have achieved already a degree of success. And there is now a threat of this Omicron. I think I am with you that the greatest law of the land is the welfare of the people. And I believe this is the proper time to tell our people that we have to be vaccinated. If they do not want, then they should not get out of the house, because our people will be endangered. That's all, Mr. President.
In our setup, it is the rule, the golden rule in a democracy is actually the greatest good for the greatest number. Kaya magboto kayo, ang 51 magboto in favor, ang 49 hindi. Even in marami yung 49, but a majority of one would make the difference. It is the greatest good for the most number. It wouldn't include you. Ayaw. We're trying to, we are in a crisis actually. We have been at it sa itong COVID. So, when the time comes na mandito itong mga magdating itong animal na to, Omicron, sana, I hope and I pray na hindi ito kasing lakas ng D. And the vaccines that are already given to the citizens would be as good as any other itong germs na dumadating. Let me continue with the Carlo, si Vince Dizon, si Senator Go. Senator Go is the chairperson sa Committee on Health and Demography. Siya yan. So if you want anything that we question a law or whatever you propose, si Senator Go ang may vast powers ang health yan Talagang may say siya in the operation of government. Mabigat itong itong narratives nila sa Congress. Sekretarya niyo. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. I would really suggest, sir, that let us be very hard or strict on pressuring people to take the vaccination. I think sa ibang countries po, sir, parang tayo nga ang isa sa pinakalinya. If you compare with other countries like European, talagang tinanggalan na po nila ng privileges yung mga unvaccinated. Hindi po naman natin ima-mandatory, but at least we'll make it harder for them to live while there is pandemic. Because that's the cause of mutations, sir, kung hindi ma-achieve yung herd immunity. we have already LGUs who are announcing, declaring mandatory. And actually, we are encouraging them. Number one is Mayor Chavit Singson. Nag-announce na po siya na sa bayan niya, hindi na welcome ang unvaccinated. At yung mga unvaccinated, hindi pwedeng pumunta ng bayan at diyan lang sa bahay. Well, unless kung meron siyang RT-PCR na negative. Well, the vaccines are free and they can go to any vaccination site. And that is for their own good. Pagka magkasakit po yung tao ng COVID, hindi niya pinipili mayaman o mahirap, pero 2 million po yan kapag critical or severe. Yan po ang billing niya. Kung indigenous yan, government pa rin po yung magbabayad niyan. At kung mamatay yan, pati cremation yan sa DSWD po kukunin. Kung siya ay vaccinated, protected na siya. And productive citizen pa. So while we cannot really impose mandatory because we don't have laws, national law, but at least through the Section 16 of the Local Government Code, a local chief executive can issue executive order or ordinances that will protect its constituents. And that issuance is considered legal unless stopped by the court. So, habang may pandemic po, I think, yun pong sa mga labor, talaga pong dinesign natin yung policy na yan para talaga mapilitan pong mag-vaccination yung mga laborers. Kung sasagutin po natin yung kanilang RT-PCR, parang wala rin pong effect yung ating policy. Parang tawag natin doon, parang namihasa lang po sila. So let them feel the pressure, the hardship, the difficulty, and then they will be willing to be vaccinated. So I think, sir, that's the only way we can address hesitancy. Many of these hesitant people are actually based on fake news lang, sir. Sa dami ng mga article, ng mga reading materials na hindi naman, sir, totoo. But I think kung pera na yung pinag-uusapan, kung hindi na makapagtrabaho, talagang embrace po nila yung vaccination. And then later on, they will realize that it's really for their own good and welfare. Ilan po.
Thank you. It's a good comment. Itong overzealousness ng itong mga congressman. You know, they want everything done by legislation, by law. Tapos, they are criticizing the executive department tayo of issuing rules and regulations. Alam mo, when you discuss the ministant functions of government, andyan yung law-making body. But the president, in the absence of a law, and there is really a pressing need for presidential intervention, the president can issue rules and regulations. In the meantime, na walang batat, I can issue rules and regulations to guide the departments under me, the secretary, na ito ang gawain ninyo because in the meantime, I said they are maybe trying to craft a law. Kung hindi ako maka-issue ng rules during times of crisis, you castrate the president. Kaya ako nagsasabi sa kanila, let us be clear on this. Some of us are lawyers, pareho man tayo, but yung interpretation ninyo does not really fit into what I have learned in school, sa law school. Itong presidente, every time that there's a problem, sabihin nila, oh, you cannot do that, or there is no law. So if there is no law and there is a crisis, what would you do? O, makatulong kayo. But tapos mag-craft kayo ng law, magdaldal pa kayo ng isang buwan. Ay, kalukuhan. That's why ako hindi ako maniwala. Sabi ko, you better go back to school, law school, or let's have a debate if you want in public. Para malaman natin, what is not the purpose of the president? Just sit down and do nothing because there is no law. So what what are you there for? Kinakastrate mo pag every time maghingi ka ng law. Lalo na yung iba yung hindi abogado magsalita ng mga trying to be relevant. So kung anong mapapasok dyan, saligdigang up on a certain issue. Kaya ako siya, pag ginawa ko, gawin ko, wala akong pakialam sa inyo. That's why we have this now, a law in yung memorandum ko prohibiting cabinet members from testifying without my consent. Kasi puuin lang kayo dyan, gaya ni Secretary Duque, pati si Secretary Galvez. Tawagin nila doon, isomon, outside of respect departmental courtesy. Mag-advise advise to testify in the morning of 9. Out of courtesy sa mga mainit ng ulo ko. Mamura ko talaga ito. Tell them the time and give them the space. Kaya paupuin mo ng 13 hours. Ako ang sekretary, putang ina. Bahala, titindigan ko kayo. Contempt, lukuhan. You are injecting. Wala akong pakialam doon sa ibang transaksyon na I said you can do what you want. Wala pa naman hanggang ngayon. Because they trying to, ito si Gordon, kasi nga siya may kinuha siya ng pera nung siya, was it 86 million? Ngayon, may audited siya. Then, in audit, pagka, tawag nito, disallowance. If you receive a disallowance, ibig sabihin, the liability is personal. Ito si Gordon, anong ginawa ng pera, 86 million. Tapos, dinimanda siya sa kuwa. So, yung pagkasanay disallowance, that is the term, that is the courteous term of, in criminal law, it's malversation. So, when you are given the disallowance and you don't pay, do not return the money, you fight it out. Pagdating sa Supreme Court, talo siya. So, the decision has become final and executory 6 years ago. 4 years? Hanggang hindi pa niya nabayaran. Gordon na to. Tapos kung magdaldal, kala mo lahat ng yan ang mahirap sa live ba ito? Ipa-live mo kasi para marinig ng mas magpakamarunong pa. Kung si Tugarde ka, kasi yun ang valedictorian namin sa law school. Okay pa. Kaya patakbuhin ko sana ng senador para lecture on the finer points of law. Yung legal counsel nila dyan, bugok.